Hi, guys. Welcome back to The Deciding Factor. I'm John.
And I'm Alton.
And with us again is Barb. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, guys.
So today's show is going to be about whether you should become an expat. So if you remember back in the day, we had Miley Cyrus saying that she wanted to move away and go to another country to get away from Donald Trump. And you hear the same now that Biden's in office. Is this really a valid reason to move out of the country and go somewhere else? This is what we're going to talk about today. I can't wait to jump into it. I know we've already done the show and I've learned quite a bit. And what's that word that's not really a word? Is it expating that we're staying away from?
Escapading.
Escapading.
Unless you speak English, in which case we're talking about expatriating.
There you go. So this will be fun. This will be interesting. So make sure you stay tuned to this episode, and also make sure you catch us on the Deciding Factor Extras, where we get a little crazier than normal and can't ever hold it together. But guys, stay tuned because stay tuned because this is the Deciding Factor.
Everyday life issues broken down to help you build your own opinions on the issues that matter most. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, this is The Deciding Factor with your host, Alton Hill and John Herzog.
All right, guys, so we're back. Barb, tell us about Miss Becker.
Well, first it's Mrs. Becker to start with. This is Andrea Becker. She is a wife, a mom, a daughter, a friend, and an idealist. You gotta like that she introduces herself that way. She was born to a South African mom and a German-born father in Canada. She's got 4 brothers. As a teenager, she experienced her first taste of travel with her mom on a trip to South Africa after the Apartheid in 1994. Later on, she traveled on a missions trip to Germany. In 2002, she attended an international Bible school in Germany, which led to her eventually moving in 2005 to study education. And she has lived in Germany ever since. She's got 3 boys and a husband who recently started his own business as a porn-free coach. Together, they have their own cover band. They do wedding gigs, and as much as time allows, and coronavirus, we're obviously recording this in the midst of a lot of shutdowns. She has been teaching in Germany for several years and loves it more than she could imagine. So today, Andrea, thank you so much for coming on the show. She is here to teach us about the life of an expat.
Oh,
Thanks
yeah.
so much for having me, guys.
I wore my Canada shirt for you, eh?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Y'all
Yes!
are just so amazing.
So which part of Germany?
Southern Germany. So one of the most amazing places here.
I spent some
It's,
time in Dresden.
Oh, it's also very nice. Yeah.
Work. Yeah, I drove all around everywhere except the southern part. I never made it
you
down
missed
there,
out.
but
You better head
I
back
need to
there.
go back.
Yeah.
I stayed in Frankfurt 2 years
Oh.
ago. That was fun.
Yeah, Frankfurt is like a good starter. It's very industrial. So you definitely have to check out the more regional kind of funky hidden secrets.
Come
But-
see the cultural side of Germany.
Porn's not an issue there in Frankfurt. It looks like it's more prostitution issues there.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably a connection. Hey, but before we get her totally off talking about porn, which is a great conversation, I would like if you could tell us your story citizenship-wise, where you started out. I know we said a little bit, you started out Canadian. You are now officially German. I probably needed to ask that. Have you transferred your
actually,
citizenship or?
I'm kind of in the process of applying for my German citizenship because I can't have both. And yeah, I don't know, like it's kind of hard to give up Canadian citizenship. Just looking at your Canada shirt, Alton, through the screen, and just miss Canada. And I'm very much, I mean, it's so much a part of who you are is what country you come from and where you're raised, right? Now I've been almost in Germany as long as I've been in Canada, like for my life, basically. So I also get paid less as a Canadian. I have a permanent residency basically here, but that's kind of also another reason why I'm thinking about giving it up. Obviously voting and getting paid normally.
like a German. Okay.
So
Yeah,
what's
basically.
what's the difference in pay there? Like how does that work?
Well, if you are like hired by the state and you have kids, I have 3 kids, so per child hired by the state, you get approximately 600 to 800 euros more per month.
Okay, because you have children, but because you're not a citizen, they're
Yeah.
not sponsoring that. But you're paying taxes though, even though
Yeah, I mean, I still get paid decently. Like, and to be hired by the state, you have to also go through a bunch of other requirements and whatnot. But basically, that's the only thing kind of keeping me back is my citizenship. So,
So when you first moved to Germany to go to school, was your plan to stay?
to be honest, at the time, I don't think I thought that far, and I'm probably glad I didn't. I think if you choose to move somewhere and you're young, then you're probably just kind of like living in the moment and checking it out and seeing how things go. So at the time, I don't know, I just kind of went with the flow, and I can only stay for 3 months until I got my first language visa. And then after the language visa, it was okay. And then I have my proper studying visa. But then every few months, like every half a year, you better make sure you pass your exams because otherwise you're not going to get your visa. So it was like a lot of pressure to kind of to keep things going. I mean, for myself, keeping things going, I passed my tests. There was one instance where I did fail one of them, and that was always very dramatic. But I had
so
a
did
friend
they
who was
like
from
put
Serbia.
you in jail for failing, or like what happened?
No, but they might just be like, well, sorry, you can't study here anymore. So,
Man,
so
Harsh.
that's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, I think at the get-go, if you get like kicked out at the beginning, it's not that big of a deal. But if you like have half of your studies done and then like doesn't work out and you're not married to anybody who's going to give you a visa because you're married to them, yeah, kind of a lot to invest in. I mean, schooling here is so much cheaper. That's why I think a lot of people consider moving to Europe to do schooling. Because I think I paid 500 euros for a semester.
What?
Wow.
What?
That's a lot
Yeah.
cheaper.
And then their students were protesting while I was at school to kind of get rid of school fees. And then there was the time when they afterwards, after all the protests, they did actually get rid of school fees. And now I think they just have like, I don't know, I think maybe they're paying 300 maybe now for just like
Wow.
administrative things.
That's like
Wow.
less than an elk hunting license for out of state person. Well, is it true in Germany that so I guess you have like a graduate program, master program, PhD program. If you want to continue moving up that ladder, I guess that there's sponsorship for all of that, right? Is that true?
Not always. It depends what kind of program you want to get into. And to a certain degree, if you already have a degree, you do have to pay something, but it's nothing compared to Canada or the States. So even if you are paying, I don't know, like 500 euros
right
semester or something like that, it's still, there's just no comparison.
Yeah, when I was working there, I think that the guy had 2 PhDs, and I'm like, really? You need 2 PhDs? And he's like, yeah, well, like I already had one, and it was so cheap to get the next one. And I was like, well, that's cool. But
yeah,
he
you can
also,
get sponsored too.
yeah, he also said that when he had a child and he got 9 months paternity leave and like 80% pay or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, my
it's
goodness.
like 75, I think 75%. So my husband actually did that too for our kids. And so yeah, he basically took parental leave, and a lot more men are doing that here because it's, I mean, good way. I did my studies during that time that he was kind of there at home, and yeah,
It's a
there's a
different
lot of social benefits.
different culture there. Well, tell me a little bit more about like leaving your native country. I guess I've always thought about expatting because I get sick and tired of the new laws and junk that they're passing here in the States. So I think, man, maybe there's another place that I could have more freedom than here. I mean, is that kind of what you were thinking, or am I crazy here? Or I've thought, man, I'm just going to make a bunch of money and then I'm going to owe a bunch of taxes. And then I'm just going to say, deuce, I'm out. I'm not paying.
I think if you aren't really happy where you're at, then I don't think you should move.
What?
Ooh.
Why is that?
Explain.
Really?
Yeah, because
I'm right next door to John here. Come on. Talk me off the cliff here.
well,
That's the most happiness you've ever had. What are you talking about?
It's like,
yeah, I don't know
Disneyland.
if you're not happy where you're at. Like my brother's been saying for years, oh, he wants to move to Germany, wants to move to Germany. Yeah, I mean it's great, but yeah, like if you're not happy where you're at, you're not gonna be happy here ultimately. My cousin actually moved to Africa, to Cameroon, or is in the process of moving there. And she also recently asked me, oh, how long did it take you to get really like adapted to being in Germany? And she's expecting me to be like, oh, like a year. And I was like, no, like about 7 years. I think about 7 years in, I kind of was like,
Wow.
okay, because you go through a phase of like, you love it and it's all new and it's exciting. Then you go through that, I hate it because these people are rude and these people are whatever. And then all the little things that you miss, like your light switches or your fridges are kind of different, or how people park, or
But if we're going to just Canada, there's not much difference, right? I mean, except for the money's less.
well, I think government, it's like there's so many little things I think that one doesn't know until you've really lived there. So like the government, for example, I don't think you would like our government. I mean, especially not right now, but I don't think in general that you would like it. I think Americans are used to a bit more like, it's a lot of little things that I think one underestimates. Or you want to talk about sensitive people? I mean, those Canadians, oh my goodness.
Are they really?
Oh yeah, like you don't say please and thank you and hold that door open while the person's like 10 million miles away from the door, and you are a very unkind and very rude person. Things like that.
Well, they can just get over it.
Yeah, you guys would be terrible Canadians. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
Canadians can be though, like they can be pretty temperamental. Like, yeah, like Edmonton had the nickname for a while, Deadmonton, because like we did have like pretty bad like gangs and violence and.
Really? It's funny because the one time that I was in Edmonton with you that time, because we've known each other since we were kids. I remember thinking like their streets are so clean, like it was swept. I think the World Cup was there or something. There was some event going, like it looked so shiny and clean. And I was so surprised when you told me that it wasn't always like that. Like,
no,
not always spiffed up.
It's always hot in Texas. Just so you know.
Except when you have the biggest snowstorm ever, and that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, or tornadoes apparently in the north right now.
So what I'm getting though is if you're not happy to start with, like you bring your unhappiness with you wherever you're going to go. A country isn't going to fix that.
And I mean, it's nice, but it's, I mean, I love Germany, but there's a lot of things to consider, right? Like, I mean, COVID right now, I don't know when I'm going to see my parents. I really don't know when I'll fly back. I don't know if I fly back, if I'm going to have to quarantine 2 weeks in a hotel with my kids, which is like ridiculous. My parents are getting older. I don't have that many friends anymore there. Like I have maybe 2 or 3 friendships. I mean, I have a lot here, but you really have to realize you're going to be losing a lot of what you have right now. If you don't really care about what you have right now, I mean, maybe you'll be like, okay, well, it doesn't matter because I don't have much anyway, but yeah, you will really have to let go of a lot. And the closeness, the family gatherings, everything you're used to, everything that when you're feeling like crap, that is your comfort, that won't be there anymore, except for Starbucks, which will always serve lukewarm coffee.
I was going to say, is there ice cream in Germany? Need ice cream.
What country in, it'll be lukewarm.
Now, Alton, just remember, if you decide to go to Africa, you can't take the motorcycle with you.
What?
You can actually.
In Africa?
Yeah, there's like a bunch of people who do like biking trips. I mean, I wouldn't do it,
but 1 out of 3 bikers get eaten by lions on their bikes. So I
doesn't mean you can't bring it.
I'll totally outrun those.
Fewer leave than come.
You know, I did. So I spent, I don't know how much, but probably maybe 2 months total on a few different trips in Eastern Germany. And I really fell in love with it because I was like, man, the people are so cool. And it's like kind of everything kind of shuts down around 7 o'clock, at least when I was there, which was super cool. And I found out like, man, if you want to buy something, you better get it early because everything's just going to shut down. And I thought, man, I could see myself living here until I thought about the gun laws, which you can't really have guns. And I'm like, well, that's stupid. There's no amount of things that could attract me somewhere that's going to force me to give up my guns. So, Andrea, tell me, like, what's the biggest thing that you miss, or like something that you think isn't worth trading in, maybe?
Isn't worth trading in. I miss a lot. Actually, I have like my little notes. What I miss. I mean, obviously, the things that you always miss is always people, right? It's always like family. Trading in. I don't know if you can think of it that way, because if you focus on what you're missing and what you're not getting, you're never going to focus on what you do have while you're there. Actually, for a long time, I thought, oh, if I ever move back to Canada, I want to move to somewhere close to the mountains, not Edmonton. But then I realized, like, hey, I'm living in the most beautiful place in Germany, where there's like, basically, I'm 45-minute drive away from the mountains. I'm close to France. I'm close to Switzerland. I have like, there's wine country here. It's like, yeah, I mean, one can always think about, like, what am I missing kind of, and I try to practice gratitude like every day, like Barbara does on her webpage too, and write down things I'm thankful for. And to be honest, it has changed a lot, like my perspective on what do I miss besides family. I do miss family, but it's pretty good here, besides the grumpy Germans when they're grumpy. I miss
Are they grumpy
people.
or just drunk?
There's a lot of drunks right now.
It's not just Germany.
I was gonna say, says the Texans.
In Texas, it was open the whole time. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
good
there's-
on Texas.
there's two things that I remember about Germany. One was it was cloudy like all the stinking time, and there was one day that it was sunny, and it was a ghost town. And I'm like, where is everybody? So I finally get off work, can't get anything done because no one's there, and I go to like one of these beer gardens next to the river, and literally like everyone's naked out there sunbathing, like worshiping the sun. And I'm like, well, I guess if I was not accustomed to the sun, I mean, it's just not sunny all the time there.
Yeah.
So they just have to get everything tan?
Well, not every, but I mean, like I'm just saying everyone's going down to the river and getting
naked.
Sun.
The Eastern Germans, they're really like, woo. Yeah.
It's true.
Weird how descriptive that is, but yeah.
Okay, so I want to jump back because a lot of the things you keep saying is family. You don't have family there anymore. What about those people that live down in Texas and have, a second wife living in Washington or something like that? You're kind of without that. Sorry, it's an inside joke between me and Barb. she's giving me some weird looks. Like,
no, I'm laughing. Like, I don't think I ever explained that to Andrea. John talks to me more than he does to his actual wife. That's where it comes from, which is terrible. A little bit. That's why you said it at the beginning. So,
Does your wife listen to these podcasts?
Not anymore.
No,
she doesn't.
No.
Not anymore.
Neither one of them does. Yeah.
That you know of.
I don't know if I'm married anymore at this point.
I'm pretty sure she stopped listening. Okay, but you're saying you got family all over the place. You got connections.
No. The bigger point is you're telling people not to leave and move to a different country because then you lose your family and friends. I'm going to disagree with you, because if you have people living in other states, calm down.
If we want to lose our family and friends, sorry.
It starts out that way a lot.
If they're living states away, then you're basically living in another country as it is, because you got to take a plane to get there. So really, are you missing anything? Because a lot of the people here in the US, like you had mentioned, was the government being an issue. They don't like what's going on with the government. They want out. So if they don't have friends and family, like somebody on the show, and want to get away from the government, then why not go?
No, I don't think people shouldn't move because of friends and family, because they'll miss that. I don't think people should move because I think most people don't have the stamina and they don't have the perseverance to go through the shit that takes, to actually persevere through years of crap and through setback after setback, through intense loneliness, through isolation, basically, through feeling like, I don't think a lot of people have that stamina. I don't know. People who want to move are usually trying to get away from something. And that's why I think, like, if you're not content where you're at, and if you don't have the stamina to stick it out where you're at, you're not going to make it somewhere else in a world where you're on your own. And are you going to be able to, all of your
Mhm.
comforts, everything that you have, the language, the jokes, unless you move to Canada, yes, maybe the language, but even some of the jokes, you'll be like, okay, well, and it takes a while, like to find your niche, to find your people, because people are, like COVID, where like everybody's by themselves, at least not in Texas. I mean, Texas, they aren't, I guess, but
I'm still
Well,
hugging.
I,
And
I don't get half the jokes here anyway, so it won't really feel different there. So.
Are there
Yeah, but
puns in Germany?
there are,
Okay.
yes.
I don't know though. I think there's a difference like between flying from Washington to Texas versus flying from Washington to Germany. That is a totally different venture. I mean, I bet you have to make really careful assessments as to whether or not you're going to get together for a holiday. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I don't get the impression that it's that easy to travel internationally, especially if you've got a family. I mean,
The States is insane right now anyway, because you have to fill out like extra stuff, even if you're just like landing in the States to go to Canada. So it's like, oh, if you want to land in America, you're going to have to do, sorry, this is like my Canadian pet peeve, because you got to fill out extra forms just to land in our airports. So yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
what if? Sorry, John.
they have over in Hawaii, and I had to take my daughter over there one time. They had us have
I'm
a
sorry.
questionnaire to fill out, and it asked you a bunch of stupid questions, and I didn't fill it out, and they yelled at me. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Like, do you have $10,000 in cash on your person?
no, it was more like, are you traveling with pets? Have you touched a lizard in 2 weeks? Like,
Hmm.
Do you have a
stupid
plant
stuff.
on you or in your backpack? Yeah.
I always thought that
Have
that
you
was
kissed a Canadian lately? Like what?
they. Yeah, when I was flying to Germany, or when I was coming back, they would always ask, "Do you have more than $10,000 cash? And if so, you have to claim it." I'm like, "Shut up! I don't. Like, that's my business. You kidding me?"
9,999. I'm totally fine.
I'm like, "What if I had $1 million? It's none of your business." But that's one of those, I guess,
Unless you have a rubber glove, you'll never know.
a difference in flying across states and flying across international borders. But that was a cool thing when I was, speaking of Europe, being in Dresden, I was right next door to the Czech Republic. I was right next to Poland, and so there's like totally different cultures, all really close to each other, which is not the same. Like if Barbara flies, down to Texas, yeah, the culture is a little bit different, but not drastically different. Like I forget whether
it's
it was
drastically different.
Well, I forget if it was Czech Republic or Poland, but I went across the deal and I walked into what I would call a convenience store. And in Texas, it's totally cool to just, pick up a Snickers bar, look at it, see if you want to buy it and set it back down. Well, I tried that in one of these countries and the lady almost beat me up for touching the merchandise before I paid. I'm like, I got money. So maybe, Andrea, that's some of what you're speaking about too. It's like these little nuanced things that you don't think about that can be annoying over time that you
Yeah.
don't anticipate.
Yeah, you gotta, I didn't know breakfast was so important to Germans, for example. I mean, we eat breakfast in Canada. You guys eat breakfast, I'm sure, sometimes too, where you just have your coffee. But like the German breakfast is kind of sacred. And before I got married to my now husband, I was dating somebody and I never really got what the big deal was and why he was always so disappointed when I'm like, well, let's have cereal. And it was like, he kind of took it personally, but it's like,
Wow.
it's a sacred thing. Like your weekends, it's like those little tiny things that, it takes time to really get to know these little nuances and to develop basically like the cultural language. I mean, also the language, if it's a different language. It takes
That
time
too.
to, like,
Specifically the language as well.
yeah.
So let me ask a question, because I've looked at living in different places, thinking about inflation here in the States and how much money am I going to have to retire on, and then having this idea of, if I could just save up a lot of money, I could then move to some other country that my money would take me a lot further in. So I guess I'm interested in your thoughts on that. Like is there some things that just having a lot of money and then moving out of the United States or Canada could do for you? Like, I think you mentioned Africa or something. I'm assuming that US dollar would go further in Africa.
Oh yeah.
I know it does in India. Yeah. What are your thoughts
Germans
on
do
like
that.
moving with maybe
They
more
move to,
money?
like, Eastern Europe. Like there are some Germans who are retired who choose to move to Bulgaria or also Eastern European countries in general. Yeah, I mean, you can. You got to think about, I guess, also the healthcare systems in those places, possibly old age type stuff. Like, what kind? And Namibia is apparently quite good. They're pretty good, healthcare systems. I think it just takes a while to find a place that's going to be your fit. And I guess Paraguay is kind of, I know quite a few people who obviously live abroad. So Paraguay is also like a big one at the moment. And I think it only costs $500 to get a citizenship there. So,
Oh, wow.
but there's a lot of sticks, and I don't know, what do you want? Like, do you want a country where you can like go back and forth and experience the French croissants or the Swiss fondues, or do you want to
He just
drive
wants to
in
keep his guns. That's all that matters to him.
your Land Rover in Africa with your gun?
Yes. See, that I could do.
But you have kids, so then you might want to think about, okay, well, who are my kids going to marry? Are there people there that they're going to get married to?
Mhm.
Like what? Because my husband actually grew up in Micronesia as a missionary kid, and his parents, like, they lived there for 7 years, and by the time he was 12, that was a major question for them: is who is he? Is he going to get married to one of these tribal women? Is he gonna, like, what kind of education is he ultimately going to have? I mean, it was an international school, but then he came back to Germany and had like a huge culture shock. Yeah, so those are all things too, like with kids, to really consider. Like,
So let's say I don't listen to a damn thing you say, and I want to become an expat anyways. What's the first thing I should do to settle in when I move?
so you're just gonna move like that?
I'm
Okay, well,
fed up
before
with
you
my
move
government.
like that, I think
I'm
you should live
kicking
there
him out
for
of
a
my
year.
house.
Well, I think you should live
Okay.
there for a year before you move.
That was my question, actually. Was I have this picture in my mind that if you expatriate, that's it. Like, you're committing to that. There's no way to succeed in a new country unless you completely commit to the culture, commit to all, the healthcare system, like the whole thing.
Mhm.
Would you, like, from where you are, would you have the option of just returning to Canada? Like, I don't know why you would. I mean, your family is raised there, but I mean, like, from a legal standpoint.
I do, because I still have my Canadian citizenship and the kids have dual.
Okay.
When I give mine up, they'll still keep their dual, but my husband, for example, will have to go through the whole application process, like, and it's expensive. I mean, Canada has really strict immigration policies, very
Okay.
difficult. So if you want to get into Canada, start now, because the process is very long. They expect a lot of money. If you speak French, you're definitely in the advantage as well. Healthcare, they check on your health tests and language tests, and like, there's a whole bunch of stuff to get into Canada. So we've been married for a while, but we still have like a bunch of paperwork and a bunch of money to like put into the system in order for him to even just get a landed immigrancy status.
Okay, I got to challenge you on the moving there for a year beforehand. I feel
Yeah.
like if you're going to stay there for a year, you're kind of already committed at that point. You're already moved, because I'm not turning back once that happens, because you got to have a job, you've got to have a house, and things like that.
What if you rented out your place? And what if you took like an
Potato,
unpaid
potato.
leave and found like a kind of temporary job there for a year? That would be my suggestion. Try to figure out a way to make it work. Live there for a year, kind of see it as like a family experiment.
I don't think I could take that risk. I'm not going to work at a convenience store and move across country.
But you're
Just
assuming
don't
that
know
if you
where-
moved like more permanently, if you just went, that you would get a job better than a convenience store, right? I mean, she's describing a lot of planning here, and you don't. I don't even know that you speak Canadian well enough to go to Canada. I heard you with the whole and a thing. Like, that's real. But I mean,
What
that's
is
a
wrong
big,
with it, eh?
it's a big leap, though. Don't you think? I mean, you of all people,
If
HR
I'm going to
John
be
seems
there
like,
more than if I'm going to be there more than 2 weeks, like,
You're just
I have to fully move. I mean, there's nothing else.
What's the longest you've been not somewhere like your house?
How long have I been away from my mommy? Is that what you're asking me?
Mhm. Yeah, like what's the longest time you've been away?
I've been living with my wife for 2 years now. Okay.
What's your longest vacation, man?
So-
or
holiday.
workcation?
So, right at about 2 weeks, and that was actually over in Europe.
Mhm.
But you didn't move to Europe, is it? So it's like
It was
13
for
days so you
work.
could make
I
it
was
back?
working there, so it was fun.
Mm.
What?
Mm.
You're
By the
saying
way,
if you
you
had
lived
worked there for
Many
15 days, that you would have had to just stay.
Maybe. No. It was a work trip, so it wasn't like anything longer. Like I was getting paid. But beyond 2 weeks, it's like most people, you don't have any more vacation time. You got to start doing something.
Germans have 30 days vacation.
I'm moving to Germany this year.
Yeah.
Have a couple kids, you can get
Yeah.
9 months.
I,
You do
I
have
mean,
to
I
work a
think-
year before though.
I think that it would be foolish to like expect to move to a totally different culture, a totally different country, and not try before you commit. I mean, it would be different, I guess, if we were like refugees, right? That
okay, but how do you
Austin got
try
nuked.
without fully moving? Because if you try, that means you still have a house here, and now you got to find a place to sleep there.
yeah, but that's just not a big deal. You just haven't done it. Like Andrea said, you rent your house out and you just Airbnb or get a month-to-month rental down there. It's not
Yeah.
a big deal.
You wouldn't have to buy both locations, and you could probably make
I
money on our.
I stayed in a hotel for like a month. They do monthly rates. Not a big deal.
But I do know what you mean when you say, okay, well, how are you really gonna try? Because if I'm gonna like half-heartedly go into this, how am I gonna have the perseverance to be like, no, I'm in this and I'm gonna see it through, and there's no back door.
Yeah, I think you have to have, like, to me, there's a difference in expatting because I just think it would be cooler to live in the south of France and Texas is lame. Or I don't have enough money to retire, so I need to find another place to live. Or they're confiscating all the guns. I'm gonna start shooting people or I'm out. You know, those are all different reasons.
Might have trouble getting
and-
into a country if that was your reason.
Well,
I just think you can make up your mind pretty quick. So my wife has her mom and stepdad. They went overseas, checked out this area that they had talked about and researched, and found out, oh, we could retire now, and we'd save so much money every year. They went there, and it took like 24 hours for them to go, holy crap, this is a shithole. I'm out, and they're gone, and it was never talked about again. So I'm really kind of like, yeah, I don't think it really takes a year, does it?
Andrea is saying perseverance, though. That probably like 24 hours probably does not count as persevering into the culture.
Yeah. If
That's
you're
what
not
you do
happy
on
where you're at-
dates, right? You got 24 hours to keep me interested.
well, I think too, like I've thought about moving to Florida. I've thought about moving to Colorado, both places that I have spent a lot of I've spent more vacation time in Florida and Colorado than any other spot that I've vacationed. But then I think about moving there. And while I love vacationing in both of those places, I start thinking like, Andrea, what you're saying, like, oh, okay, well, how are my kids getting educated? Like, well, Florida's not exactly known for the quality of their schools, you know? Okay, well, then that means maybe I'll do something else. And then Colorado, like most people are nice, but I've also met a lot of rude people in Colorado and way more than Texas. And so I think that those are the things that on the outset, you're like, oh, look, I'm going to shoot elk and go hiking and do all these cool things in the mountains. And then you're just driving and you wave to somebody and they give you the finger and you're like, how many times does that need to happen before I'm like, man, I kind of miss Texas. So I like the idea of going and visiting some places like the sabbatical idea. And if you find yourself there at the end of the month and you're like, man, I don't really want to go home, then maybe you're thinking more along the lines of moving somewhere.
Now,
Yeah.
Andrea, before the show, we had actually talked about some of these things, and I wanted you to make the point that you made there, which was you comparing it to kind of like a relationship. So, how about you hit us with that quote again and explain how that fits into expating? The grass is greener.
Oh, the grass is greener where you water it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to kind of like, I was kind of in like a different sphere of something. So it was kind of,
We
so
turned the
many
camera
impulses.
on. You can't handle it now.
I know. Shoot. Yeah, grass is greener where you water it. I don't know. I mean, if you, okay, tell me if I'm not answering your question. Yeah, if you're not happy where you're at now, then you're not going to be happy there because you basically don't have the mentality of I will fight to make it something that fits for me. So if you're going to be in Colorado and people are giving you the finger, either you're like, I'm going to keep on waving at those people and I don't care what happens. Or you can be like, I will give them the finger back. So, and then you figure out a way to adjust, right? Because you, like you said before, you don't have that, like the way out because you've then decided I'm all in. But sometimes I think it is like, it's such a big decision to make. So sometimes you just kind of go day by day and see what happens. And I mean, I don't think very many people go into decisions saying, I'm going to totally be there my whole life. I think probably most people that leave just go on the impulse, like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is working. This is not working that great, but I guess I'm kind of used to it now, or get married to somebody.
So my final question, and this is the most important question, is if Alton wanted to move to Germany or Canada, how would people react to them getting hugged at random by him?
Oh, in Germany, yeah. They wouldn't be too impressed, I don't think. They might like hit you with a purse or start yelling at you.
Even the guys?
Depends on the guy. Like, I mean, I would pick somebody who looks like they might be in a good mood. But if you're picking like an old man or something, like, ooh, that'd be like a huge scene. People would be like, whoa, what's happening here? And what is this guy doing? Is he trying to steal my money? And yeah, I think in Canada, though, people.
I have a way.
Oh, in Canada, what?
I think in Canada, they'd be like, oh, ho, ho. Hi.
What's up, eh?
It would be awkward.
You want a hug, eh?
But I'd get the hug.
Yeah,
you know, when I went to Canada for the first time, I was in Toronto and it was on a work trip. And, you know, I'm staying at a hotel and the guy after work, he's like, hey, you know, so where are you staying? I'm like, oh, I'm staying over here. He's like, let me take you home. And I'm like, well, you know, I can just get the taxi. It's cool. And he's like, no, I'll take you. So we're headed there and he's like, let's go eat. And I'm like, that's fine. Literally, we sat there for like 4 hours and I'm like, don't you have kids and families? Like, oh yeah, it's fine. No worries, man. And like, you know, I didn't get back to the hotel till like 11 o'clock. We're just hanging out and having a great time. And I was like, man, I've got a lot of improvement to do on my, like, entertaining people that come in from out of town. And anyway, another thing that I liked about Canada was I'm like, they offered to pick me up from the hotel too. And I'm like, cool, I'll be ready 7 o'clock. And they were like, whoa, 7? I'm like 8. And he's like, And I was like, okay, cool, 9. And he's like, let's say 10. And anyway, thought it was funny.
Yeah, Canadian
hospitality is an astounding thing.
Have you been to Texas?
Stay with you. Yeah.
No, I haven't. Because actually we thought about moving there a few years ago, with transferring there for my husband's work. And we were kind of looking into some of the stats. And apparently it has the highest obesity rate in America, hey?
Beer's a little popular down here. Just saying.
I mean, that's fine.
I thought that was Mississippi, but could be Texas.
Yeah, but I mean, like then now, like you guys had this major catastrophe, and it's been like all over social media how amazing the Texans are and how helpful they are to each other and what great people they are. Is that true?
We absolutely got to see how well Texas handles situations and people helping their neighbors.
It's true.
It was big. You know, we joked about it on the show. Someone stole some water and things like that from the store, left a note, and came back and paid them back.
Yeah, like an IOU note. So I guess what we can extrapolate is that fat people are nicer.
Are you calling me fat? I feel like you're calling me fat indirectly.
I'm calling you Texan.
Like,
You know,
Alton
you
does
take it.
jujitsu. He looks kind of like he could be buff, maybe.
When he stands up, he's really
It's-
like.
It's possible.
He's gonna
Yeah.
hypnotize himself
it's a
into some
dream.
major traps.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some like big neck traps going on here.
Yeah.
I keep eating ice cream. Does that count?
I
2
don't
bowls
know.
a day.
I don't know about your statistics, but you control your own self and what you eat. So that's all that matters. So
There's
Come
an
enjoy-
opening in May, Andrea. May's the time.
Hey, to come over and eat ice cream?
hmm
That is, yeah.
I'm going in the middle of May. Meet me there. It'd be awesome.
Yeah?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
See?
Oh, that'd be
There you
amazing.
go.
Mm-hmm.
But traveling to America, like we kind of already, complicated.
I know.
Complicated.
I
Just
wouldn't wanna come here either.
persevere.
I already got enough perseverance going on living here, man.
Oh. Well, it was good having you on the show. If people want to stalk you on social media, how could they stalk you?
They can stalk me on Instagram at DreBex. And otherwise, they can email me at www.pornfrei.de. Pornfrei is German. But they can write me in English. And yeah, those are probably the best routes.
How many languages can you speak?
Properly only really 2. But you pick up on snippets if you already know, like a few, the French, I don't really count because my French is horrible. Very bad.
Probably
kinda
better
Canadian.
than mine.
All right. Well, we are going to move on to our deciding factor. So thanks for being on the show. We will stay in
Thanks for having me.
touch and stay safe.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Andrea.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
The hoot.
All right, guys. I'm interested to see where y'all's heads are headed at. So tell me something.
Something. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
that felt intense. A lot of pressure.
I would say that I think that my idea of expatting is a little different than hers generally. Like, I never thought about just bailing on America just to pursue travel. To me, that's like, I'm just traveling around. I met somebody and life happened, whereas I've like legit looked at just getting out of here if things get too sideways. But then I'm like, well, where else am I going to go? But I will say something that I didn't think about is like, what are your kids going to do? I think that that's a question that I haven't considered as much. You move to Mexico or something, and that's where you're living your life, then for sure you're like, your kids are marrying Mexicans, right? And then that's going to be your culture and your grandkids. And, well, I mean, it's like,
You don't mean that in a racist way, right?
they're
Yeah, just
literally
like what you're-
Mexicans.
I know. I'm just, someone jumps in at 20 minutes into the show. They're like, what?
Oh,
Huh?
well, if they think I'm racist, then that's totally cool with me. I don't care. But the thing is, like, that's not really in my own head when I like envision my grandchildren. Like right now, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm taking my kids to Colorado to fish in some stream, right? And I hadn't really imagined like, well, you just bailed and you moved down to some South American place to get away from the crazy government. And now your grandkids, like, it's just a totally different idea. And I think that's just something that I hadn't really considered when you're expatting. It's like, yeah, you might be living like a king in a mansion on the ocean, but do you really like have a lot of friends, or are you totally cool? Like, you all in on the culture? Maybe like I moved to Colombia and I just like create a coffee farm or whatever you call the
See,
coffee farm.
when I think about
Okay.
moving to another country, like right away, it's like, what disasters can happen? Is there a volcano I got to worry about? Something
Mhm.
crazy like that. But then it goes to the hobbies, right? I need to know, can I hunt? Can I fish? can I stay happy doing the things that I enjoy here in Texas? So it's kind of like, well, what am I going to lose? What am I going to keep?
But I think she nailed that though. If your happiness depends on a thing that you're doing, then you're not going to be happy no matter where you are. I think happiness is
No, I disagree. If I'm happy fishing in Texas, I can be happy fishing somewhere else.
Yeah, but what if you go to a place that I think that was her point, was that if you are expatriating because you're escaping something, like our government is nuts. Well, wherever there's people, there's government. It might be a different brand of crazy, but it's going to be crazy. So if you have figured out how to be content in this crazy, then you can probably viably consider, do I want a different crazy? But no way that you're going to miss out on the move of a lifetime over fishing. Seriously? Like, what if there's something else? What if you become a knife thrower in another country and you never would have thought to do that in Texas? You know, I don't know. I
can throw knives over here. No, I mean, seriously, I'm not going to give up the hobbies I have now. So if I can't do them there, it's out. Like China, no way.
You know, speaking of, I mean, definitely, I believe in Second Amendment, having guns to defend ourselves against the government. However, I like to know that if a burglar kicked in my door, I have guns for that. When I was in East Germany, in Dresden, and cruising around there, I would regularly see beautiful women all alone walking late at night. Like if it's 11, 12 at night, I ain't got nothing to do. I'm sitting in a restaurant and there's just like all these people walking around these dark streets. And so I asked the people, I'm like, what's the deal? Like, it must be safe if this is happening. And they're like, yeah, the laws are so severe for like, you know, whatever, kidnapping or whatever it is, that it just doesn't happen. So like, I can see the appeal that someone says, yeah, Alton, you want your guns, but like, what's your crime rate or what's your insecurity around this? If you look at the statistics, there's not a concern to be worried potentially. But anyway, that was just interesting to me.
So what about, you know, we're all three white Americans, but what if you were African American? Would you have incentives to get away from the quote unquote racism that they claim we have here now to move to another country where, you know, racism doesn't really frolic?
You tell me what country has no racism, and I'll tell you a country that has no people.
I mean, as far as some of the conversations I've had is like Germany and England. Race? No, am I wrong? Am I way off?
I mean, you know what World War II was about, right?
It happened. No, but I mean, I think that's kind of what she was addressing, is like, we can get sort of a idealistic picture of another place. Like, okay, if my experience with the police in the United States is bad, then I should up and move, you know, pick your country because it'll be better there. It might be different, but you're going to have another problem. Like if it's not the exact same history, they've got their own history they're overcoming. If it's not the exact same, you know, by fill in the blank, I think that is a problematic reason to consider expatriating.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, Barbara, because really, like, as Texans, I kind of know what the background is, you know, and I know, you know, it's like one of the things that I think annoys me anyways is that, you know, since I'm already racist in this show, I'll just lean into it. Like you have people from Mexico coming here, and then they fly the Mexican flag over the American flag. And I'm like, well, look, if you came here, it doesn't make sense to me to really be flying another nation's flag over the, you know, over the American flag, or definitely over the Texas flag. But then I think about, like, from their perspective, and I'm like, man, if I was Mexican from Mexico, I'd be like, y'all robbed this place from us. Like, really, this has always been Mexico. So screw you. I'm flying this flag because this is Mexico. Anyway, I know that history. I know the history of the Alamo And I know that I have like a lot of great friends that, you know, like only on the fringe actually care about those things, and everybody else just wants to have an awesome life together and include both of those cultures. So, but I'm like prepared to understand people's biases. Whereas if like I go to Canada, maybe there's some other biases that I'm not even aware of. Like there's a different dialect, and oh, these Southern Canadians, those guys, or oh, the Northern Canadians. Yeah. I mean, like I'm totally ignorant to that.
Right.
All right. Let's do the deciding factor.
Now it's time for our deciding factor.
So the question being, should I become an expat? Like for me right now, I'm not in a situation where I could care to really do it. Later on in life, as I get older and look at retirement, things like that, I think that would be a possibility. I'm calling BS on all those famous actors and actresses that are like, I'm leaving because of the new president. I don't like him. I cannot respect him. He can't be my president. I'm leaving. Wah, wah, wah. Shut up. No one cares what you think. I think it's a BS excuse for that to be the reason you go. I think if you really want to go, it kind of leads into what she has told us on the show. And that is, you've been there, you like it there, and that's why you want to go. But I think there's way too many factors, especially if you have a family like me, Alton and Barb. It's not really plausible in my head. So there's too much. I'm gonna say I'm out. I don't know that I agree with her statement of, if you're not happy here, you shouldn't go, because I think there could be times where that could play a factor. So yeah, that's where I stand.
It's funny because I totally agree with that statement, just in general, not even just with expatriating, but that escaping unhappiness is almost never the key to finding happiness somewhere else. You know, you can bring that mindset with you. That said, yeah, if I didn't have kids, if I didn't have, you know, family, if there weren't things that I was attached to, it might be something that I was fascinated by, just because it seems change is appealing to me. But talking to Andrea, I thought there was a long list of reasons not to. And one of the things that she didn't dive into deep, but I guess I was thinking about it because I recently lost a family member, is there is a chance, you know, if you're going to go across the ocean, you're going to go into a completely different culture and you're facing different bureaucracies. You don't have guarantees about travel. I have to think about would I be okay if my parents passed away and I'm across the world? Like if I don't get to see them before they go, if I don't get to, and not just them, but I'm thinking about, I had a nephew born this week. Like I like the idea that I get to see. That's an important part of my life. I don't think that that's true for everybody. And I don't think that's a reason. Like, I don't think I can give a blanket, nope, nobody should expatriate. I think that there's a lot of reasons not to. And so if you're going to decide to become an expat, you better make sure that your reasons are good, that you've accounted for those.
Yeah. Alton, hit us.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of a little more outlandish in that, like, I don't think about just moving somewhere to start a new life. I think, like what Barbara's saying, your reason has to be really strong. And I also agree in the fact that if you're just trying to escape something, that perhaps that mentality isn't the best, and that you should try to essentially like water the grass where you're at, you know? So if, like for me, the government is trying to pass some laws that are going to ban my favorite guns, like maybe I should try to do something about it here, as opposed to just bailing and being like, I'm out. I think it's a cool idea though. I think that it comes with a lot of risk. And so your reason has to be strong, you know, like I'm thinking about, I was doing some reading about the Wolf of Wall Street today, and Jordan Belfort. And I guess he owes somebody like 250 million. So he's made this movie. It's made him a lot of money, but his net worth is only like $2 million. Now he hosed tons of people out of a lot of money. But I'm like thinking about him and his shoes, like, why doesn't he just bail? And then what? Like, I'm not paying the 200 mil back. What are you going to do? I'm out. They're like, well, we're going to never let you in the country again. Okay, cool. I'm going to keep my 2 million or my 200 million in a Swiss account, and you can keep your country. So I guess when I think about expatting, I think about more along those lines of like, there's a big reason for you to make that sacrifice, but it's going to come at a price for sure. And I think after talking to Andrea, I don't have a big enough reason to, to leave the country and not be allowed back in. And that to me, I guess, is the real thing that I think about with expatting, is kind of like, you're an expatriate. You're no longer a citizen. She still has like a Canadian citizenship. And so I know like in some places, it's just the culture is totally different. Like, I don't think you can buy land in Mexico if you're not a citizen. You can rent it for a really long time. Because I've totally looked at moving, like, you know what, I'm getting fed up. I'm moving to Mexico. And, it sounds good. Like, oh man, I could get this mansion right there on the water for cheap. And then it's like, well, you actually can't own it, Alton. You can stay there for a while, but and so I'm like, okay, so I'm renting a place in Mexico, and now I'm going to be thrown in jail for the rest of my life if I ever come back. Right. So anyway, lots of risk. So you got to have a really, really good reason to do it, I think.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening in today. Make sure you do us a favor and you go onto our website or go onto our Facebook or Instagram.
Or make Pinterest.
Or Pinterest. And make sure make sure you share your comments. What are your thoughts on being an expat? Have you thought about it? What's keeping you from doing it, or what is forcing you to want to do it more?
And how racist was I in that show? Come on. Let me have it. Let me have it.
Yeah. It's okay to censor him. I will sign up on that one as well. So guys, stay tuned. We've got plenty more shows to come. I appreciate y'all joining in and helping this show out today, guys. Y'all say bye.
Later.
Bye.
This has been another episode of The Deciding Factor, giving you food for thought on real life issues. Be sure to click, like, and subscribe to this podcast, as well as all your big social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to check out our website at thedecidingfactorpodcast.com and give us comments and feedback. Until next time, stay safe and remember to keep an open mind.